Exchange 2021 reading with our this year's winners, Courtney Denelle, our fiction winner, Jodie Noel Vinson, our poetry winner, and our honorable judges, Madeleine Thien and Prageeta Sharma. I'm Bonnie Rose Marcus. I direct the Readings and Workshops program at Poets and Writers and the Maureen Egen Writers Exchange Award. And I'm here with my program associate, Ricardo Hernandez, who is doing a terrific job of letting everybody in and being the technical know-how of this whole event. So I'm most appreciative. For those of you that are less familiar with Poets and Writers, we were founded in 1970, so we're approaching our 52nd anniversary. And we're really here to offer services and support to creative writers. Our work is rooted in the belief that literature is vital to sustaining a vibrant culture. And I think we can all really feel this truly and deeply during these times, how important literature is. We focus on nurturing literature's source, creative writers. And our mission is to foster the professional development of poets and writers, to promote communication throughout the literary community, and help create an environment where literature can be appreciated by the widest possible public. And we do this through many ways. We have a wonderful award-winning bi-monthly publication, Poets and Writers Magazine. Our website, pw.org, provides trustworthy advice, information, and a lively online literary community, so check it out. It's a wonderful website for writers and readers. And our Readings and Workshops program, which I direct and Ricardo works with me as well, is a grant program that actually started Poets and Writers in 1970. And we pay writers honorariums to read their work and or conduct workshops in diverse communities in New York State, California, and 8 other cities. So we're really happy to be able to do that for writers. And we also have many awards that we give out, this award being one of them. The Maureen Egen Writers Exchange Award was established in 1984. And it was really established to introduce emerging writers to the New York City literary community. And noting in the past 2 years, because of having to do so much virtually, that has extended out. The literary community is vast. It goes beyond New York. It's all over. So that's really wonderful. We have so far awarded this award to 106 writers from 42 states and the District of Columbia. And we are so, so grateful. This award is generously supported by Maureen Egen, a member of the Poets and Writers Board of Directors, who has made it possible for so many of our winners to continue to be inspired and encouraged to do their work as writers. So much gratitude to Maureen Egen. This is a really interesting and wonderful award in that it's the way it works is that we select a different state each year to hold the contest in. And so this year's state was Rhode Island. And writers from Rhode Island were invited to submit manuscripts in poetry or fiction, and they've had to have lived in the state for at least 2 years. And our judges, Madeleine Thien and Prageeta Sharma, selected these 2 writers from our many manuscripts that were sent to us. The prize is really quite unique and wonderful. Writers are given an all expenses paid trip to New York City to meet with literary professionals that they put on wish lists, and I try to organize these meetings. So they're meeting with editors and writers and publishers. Last year, because of the pandemic, the whole trip was virtual. It was still quite wonderful. And this year we were able to do a hybrid trip. So Courtney and Jodie got to come to New York for 4 days. We had some in-person meetings at restaurants and cafes, many of which had heaters because it was a cool week last week. And then this week, they continue to meet with people virtually. So a big, big thank you to all the literary guests who met with us. I think there may be a few in the audience. I noticed Hannah Tinty from One Story. There may be a few others, but wherever you are, thank you all for being so generous of spirit in offering your time and energy to these 2 writers. I think, yeah, I just wanted to say that it really is always a pleasure for me to organize this contest and to host the writers when they come to New York, whether it's virtual or in person. This year just was very, very special for me. I think maybe because of what we're all going through, but not only are Jodie and Courtney wonderful writers, but they're both beautiful human beings, open-hearted and generous women. And I really, really was inspired and enjoyed my time with them. So I know you're gonna enjoy to hear them read. And I thank all our guests and everyone who made this possible. A special shout out and thanks to Melissa Gradle, our executive director of Poets and Writers, for just continuing to make this organization a place that does such wonderful work for writers, and all of the staff really that work with us there. So I am going to stop talking now. I also want to thank you all for coming, and I'm going to introduce Madeleine Thien, who was the fiction judge this year. We were so honored to have her do that. And I'm going to read her bio, and then she's going to introduce Courtney and tell us a little bit about why she chose Courtney to be this year's winner. So Madeleine is the author of 4 books, most recently the novel Do Not Say We Have Nothing. She's received Canada's 2 highest literary honors, the Giller Prize and the Governor General's Literary Award for Fiction. Her books have been shortlisted for the Booker Prize, the Women's Prize for Fiction, and the Folio Prize, and longlisted for a Carnegie Medal Prize. And her books have been translated into more than 25 languages. Her essays have appeared in the New York Review of Books, Brick, Frieze, Granta, and the New York Times, and the Guardian, and elsewhere. She lives in Montreal and is a professor of English at Brooklyn College. Welcome, Madeleine. Thank you so much for honoring us with your role as judge this year.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. It's totally a joy to be here, and hello, everyone. So I just want to begin by saying what a tremendous joy it was to read the long listed entries for the prize, the fiction prize. They were superb. And I also just wanted to congratulate the 2 runners up for the fiction prize, Jean M. Medeiros and Emery Harkins, who each submitted outstanding works and whose writing I really loved. I am totally thrilled to congratulate this year's winner, Courtney Denelle. Courtney Denelle's debut novel, It's Not Nothing, will be published by SFWP in September 2022. Her short stories have appeared in the Alembic, Tahoma Literary Review, the Southampton Review, and elsewhere. She's been awarded a residency from Hedgebrook and received her greater education from the public library. She lives in Providence. So the pages that I read for the prize were 2 chapters from, it turns out, from the forthcoming novel, It's Not Nothing. Here's my judge's citation. A young woman, Rosemary, living with depression and homelessness, reconstructs the world in fragments. The writing is perceptive, agile, and brilliantly startling, as it seeks to name the thing beneath the thing, which prevents Rosemary from living, yet also pushes her to survive. I want to take the opportunity to add also that Courtney writes incredibly powerfully about the gap between shelter and safety. Her writing is mesmerizing, gripping, and her, honestly quite extraordinary narrator reminds us every moment that passes is a moment of something reclaimed. So please join me in congratulating Courtney Denelle and welcoming her to our virtual stage. Courtney, I'm so excited to hear you read.
Thank you so much, Madeleine. Oh my goodness. Thank you for your kind words. I'm really just very taken aback by that. Thank you. The work I'm going to read today is an excerpt from my forthcoming novel, It's Not Nothing. The air mattress has emptied slowly through the night. 4 a.m. and I am shivering on the floor. This is fine, I say aloud to no one. I fled into the arms of Pawtucket, into a 2-room studio less than a mile from where I was born, a decision deprived of any meaning as far as I'm concerned. Beggars can't be choosers. I'm doing what I can. You know how certain places grow more powerful in the mind with the passing of time? Yeah, me neither. Lockdown drills and gonorrhea outbreaks at my old high school, the principal arrested for possession of child pornography. My old weed dealer, that troglodyte grab ass, he's a local cop now. Look away, folks, nothing to see here. A young woman dives from her Subaru, barely managing to throw it into park, ambushes me on the sidewalk, introducing herself. She's one of them, I can tell, and maybe she thinks I'm one of them too. The artists and musicians abandoning Providence, moving to Pawtucket, trying to get a scene going, trying to make Pawtucket a thing. Everything is changing, it's true, but people rarely change. Pawtucket, I know, will push back. So where are you from, she says, here. No, I mean, where were you raised? Here, right here. Where do you go to school then? Didn't. Ugh, that's so punk rock, the young woman says, smiling. But she works in an office drafting grant proposals. I work in a stock room. In a fit of optimism, I purchased a bureau and a hulking TV set from the previous tenant. $30 for the two. I have nothing to fill the bureau, but I might. No, I will. And how it turns out I am a cat person? They left their cat behind. They just left her. Now she is mine. Now she's named Dot. I am okay, but I am not well. Left to my own devices, a ringing doorbell might be the end of me, might be the very thing that does me in. There, an unannounced visitor did the job you could never manage. That's me speaking to myself, speaking to my fucking scars, the ones you can see, the ones you can't. All in all, there are 2 rules in the program. Don't drink and go to meetings. The simplicity is appealing, that and how the program loves an aphorism. The best one is, you're only as sick as your secrets. I continue going to meetings, but there are no answers for me in those seated circles. I don't even keep track of the time that has passed. It's been how long without a hangover? No use celebrating, no need to pat me on the back. It is not virtuous to not do the thing I do not want to do. What keeps one foot in front of the other is selective remembering, selective forgetting. Like how I don't go to the library anymore because it is brimming with all that has passed. The bathroom where I had washed up, where I took a breather or took a nap, the green reading room with the green reading lamps, the fiction stacks, all my friends lined up in a row. I might smell the familiar smells, I might see the familiar sights, yet something essential has changed, like I've lost myself and gained empty space for the losing. So, I am gathering cracked spines, underlined passages, and dog-eared pages. I am buying up used books, as many as I can, as if I could live inside them. I will stack the odds in my favor. I will stack them all around me, my bookcase deities. I will buy a bookcase cheap. I bolt my door at night, every night. The irony of it, me making nice with notions of safety and control, me who lived so long with the steady urge of a mind that wanted me dead. Here's the movie I want to see. A killer breaks into the home of a broken, fatal-minded woman and is greeted as a conquering hero. Finally, she says, and puts on some Elliott Smith. These little red pills coax me on, better than coffee and diet soda and energy drinks combined. Plus, my sinuses are wrung dry. But I've been cut off at the pharmacy. I have to wait until next month. I really flipped out on the pharmacists, went full tilt, riled up dirtbag, and proved their point in doing so. They're right to keep the cold medicine behind the counter now. You're not going to like this, I tell Dot. It's nothing personal. I flutter my feet beneath the blanket. She jumps from my lap to the floor, follows me into the bathroom just to sit and glare. It's like she doesn't believe me when I say I am sorry, when I say I'll be right back. There was a time when people trusted me. I wouldn't leave me alone either. Hunting something unseen. So is the cat. I find it in my shoe, eviscerated. What had I expected? That maybe Dot would just rough it up a bit, like don't come around here no more and tell your friends the same. I wrap it carefully in toilet paper, as if preparing it for a teeny pyre, but the murdered mouse is tossed without ceremony into the storm drain on my way to the bus stop. Let the rainwater take it to Valhalla, I'm late for work. And then another one, my sweet fuzzy Dot, a totally sick fuck. Except she doesn't kill it outright, just mortally wounds it, scampers away invulnerable and curls up on the air mattress for a nap. But the mouse is still breathing. I see its chest rising and falling from where I stand. Vomiting comes as a surprise, hard and fast. A dead mouse, okay, fine. A dying mouse, it turns out, is all too much. It's not that I feel bad for myself, not in the slightest. A grown-up is someone who is always upset. Misery is a right of adulthood, the only right that matters. A lesson from my upbringing, growing up in the shadow of a forlorn mill town, the weight of Pawtucket crushing us all. Like how some parents have ideas, my children will have the opportunities I never had, and yet I work for a living, the parents always say. They say, let me tell you something, and it's always something terrible. They say, I wish someone told me when I was your age, and it's always something brutal, the thing they wish someone told them. The ability to take a beating, it's not nothing. Get in your room and shut your mouth, my mother would hiss. Your father's downstairs paying bills. The coded phrase our little bodies could translate. I look into my face reflecting. I say, you're fine, everything's fine. It was a rough patch is all. But a phantom paces behind my irises. Get me out of here, I whine, and what I am talking about is my body. Me and myself are in constant dialogue. The conversation is going nowhere. These voices think they have my best interest at heart. Can you imagine? They step up to the mic as if they're not an attribute of myself, as if they're the whole shebang. My urge to hurt myself never really left. I know because I smoke in bed, all night smoking, not sleeping. I am the highly suggestible type. Infomercials, they work on me. I want it all, but especially the food dehydrator. I delight in the idea. A world of turkey jerky and watermelon fruit roll-ups is the world I want to live in. So much better than this world of mine. Diet Coke 12-packs, an oven filled with used paperbacks, ashtrays balanced on stacked up phone books. The phone books are really something they won't stop coming. How hypnotic is my sleeplessness? I imagine myself joining a cult, but a new one that's just getting off the ground when everyone is riding high and living with purpose. Before the polygamy, the child abuse, the demanded liquidation of personal assets, there's always a pink cloud era in these cults, however brief. I'm an easy mark, that kind of crushing certainty. It really appeals to me. Me and 4 a.m. existentialism. It's a torrid love affair, an outgrowth of what is normal to my nature. Why do I exist? Or, since I exist, now what? Why should there be something to live for instead of nothing? I could just as easily ask the opposite. Maybe nothing is the natural state of things and something would be weird. Really, though, it doesn't matter. But I'll see you in hell, person on my block who's been screaming on the street for an hour now. Don't they know some of us have alarms to snooze? Some of us have buses to run for, buses to miss, excuses to make. And that racket overhead, stomping feet, furniture being moved in the middle of the night, my upstairs neighbor conjuring fresh ways to ruin my life. My anxiety is the stare at the wall kind of anxiety, and my coffee habit is the by the vat kind. These two form a formidable pair. Their powers combined consume hours of my day. Left to languish on a day off from work, I don't inhabit my body before noon. What it means for me is, why bother with TV when you can watch your wheels turn? Baby blue eyeshadow, probably a stayover from something she once heard, a way to make blue eyes pop. A knockoff designer handbag that passed well as the real thing. Extra money spent to ensure the counterfeit tell was on the inside. Sun-damaged skin across her nose and cheeks, a face round as mine, my face, a face round as hers. I scan her as she appears in my mind, but I cannot make out her shoes. There's nothing south of the ankle. I focus real hard, but her shoes do not appear. Sandals in the summer, I think, maybe. To that end, she'd say something like, how could I have forgotten that ankle boots or loafers or whatever the fuck else were her thing? How my forgetting means I never knew her at all. Image is what matters to my mother, and it is all that remains. What's missing means more than the image of the thing itself. Thing, not person. What, not who. It's a stretch to imagine. A hand on my head, a comforting embrace, a muffled voice whispering, I love you no matter what. It's a stretch. What I have is the contented engine of my cat. I long to see myself as she sees me. A scene from an alternate reality might look like a waitress asking, no Pepsi, is Coke okay? A guy seated beside me on the bus asking, got enough room? A phone call from my mother asking, how you holding up? I am sick and tired of thinking about her. In the program, they say the change happens when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. halfway there. I could maximize on those things I have control over. That is a thing I could do. I've discovered that the battleship gray floor paint in my kitchen has been done over so many times, it peels off in long, easy strips. So that's what I'll be doing this evening. Shouldn't I take pride in my surroundings now that I have a place of my own? I've considered it, yes, but womb-like comfort is what I'm after, a womb with a view. Did I mention my apartment has a view, a sweeping vista of a gym parking lot? Here is some stuff I like. It's my design aesthetic. I've gone and kissed my security deposit goodbye, wheat pasting magazine cutouts onto the wall. I'm pretty much one Bob Marley poster shy of a freshman dorm room. It's like that. So I live like a boxcar hobo, but I can translate my own disarray. Like I know I will find my coffee mug on the bathroom sink because that's my last stop before I shoot out the door late for work. Thinking along those lines, everything makes sense. Nothing is ever out of order. Nothing ever goes lost. I'm locked in an endless feedback loop of reactions, it's true, but I can make a deliberate choice. I don't feel like I can. It doesn't seem like I can, but I have experience to draw upon. Like the time I rolled on ecstasy while wearing red pleather pants, understanding those pleather pants might never come off. Better to find consolation in a place, this place, my place, than in stuff. When I lament the loss of all my stuff, I try to remember there's power in it, how no one worth knowing would ever say, I'm so glad I have those red pleather pants I wore back when I was 20. I can be the person worth knowing in this scenario. Now is the time for guts and guile, but all I'm asking for is the nerve to tell the cashier at the pizza joint she has made a mistake with my order. I'm splintering. Summertime now and the windows are open. I wonder, do the people passing by on the sidewalk hear me talking to my cat? I ask my cat to weigh in, but Dot is grumpy in particular, and I respect her boundaries. I close the windows just in case. There are always familiar faces on the bus to and from work, those of us who are on the same timetable, but I keep my head down. I'm not above telling a person, sorry, I do not want to talk to you. Only twice has someone called me a bitch in response. He keeps my attention, though. No joke, his name is Romeo, Romeo the boxer, or so he says. He works at the mall like me, at the vitamin store, selling legal speed and legal steroids and strange chalky powders. I've seen him around, I tell him, and he says he's seen me too, that I'm hard to miss. I like his crooked nose and every last beating it implies. I feel his eyes on my skin gliding, and I feel his eyes peel away. In the white morning light, in the hot summer heat, my purple seams are raised and angry from wrist to elbow. They look like what they are. Oh, these. I walked into a sliding glass door when I was a kid, and some other self-deprecating nonsense, something about clumsiness. He laughs a nervous little machine gun laugh, offers up a quip of his own. For the rest of the ride, the silence we share is an awkward one. And now I have to go up a floor, box around, and take the escalator back down again just to get a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I have to avoid the vitamin store. I have to take an earlier bus. In the play, Romeo was a whiny weasel. Juliet was the one with balls, gave herself a knife to the heart for Christ's sakes, and that's no small thing. Could I get off even if I wanted to? I have dead pussy, and it feels like relief. One less thing, you know? The Olympics offer 2 weeks worth of something to look at. I like the racing sports best. There's nothing subjective, only a time. You're either the fastest or you're not. I don't consider myself competitive, no, I just have a hankering to be the best, even if it's best, worst ever. My takeaway from the closing ceremony spectacle is the host country sure has tremendous control over their people. Lawnmowers and leaf blowers, and someone somewhere discordantly pounds a hammer. Since January, I have limped towards summer. Everything will be better come summertime. But I hide with the shades drawn and the windows closed, sweating, muttering, wondering when it was that my outsides came to match my insides. Shoveling, putting up Christmas lights, raking and mowing, ripping up the ivy. I was the biggest. I had to help. The ivy was really something. It grew back with a vengeance year after year, weaving in and out of the aluminum siding, thriving in the shade. By August, it covered the garage from top to bottom. My father swearing and ripping, refusing to wear gloves, me gathering and piling, stuffing the vines into sturdy brown lawn bags. It'll take over the whole damn house, my father would grumble. That kind of tenacity, he took it personally. I prayed, grant me the resilience of a climbing plant, but I am a human animal, brutally aware, born to freeze. I used to be a fighter. Now, not so much. And there are the migraines to contend with, scenes from a life lived, a denouement rolling out on the backs of my eyelids, exploding behind my face. I see auras, except I do not believe in auras. But what the hell do I know? What with my pupils dilated in mismatched sizes? There is no range of motion in which to find comfort. The salve of darkness at last, and I open a window. Outside, it smells of plants at night, summer humidity, green life. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Courtney. I would love it if everybody just unmuted and applauded so we could hear each other and show her our gratitude. She did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Hey, Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's lots of great comments in the chat. I forgot to mention, I think you're probably all pretty savvy about that, but I think Kenneth has sort of like led the way with a lot of wonderful comments. So feel free to add to that. We're going to take like a 3-minute stretch, get something to drink, break, and then we're going to raffle off 2 subscriptions to Poets and Writers magazine. So we'll see you in 3. We'll see you in 3. You can
tab
mute
over.
yourself I think we're all gonna join back again, and Ricardo has a raffle to attend to.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Okay.
So 1 second here, I just realized I don't have my settings right. But yes, hi everyone. I'm Ricardo. I'm the program coordinator. And I work with Bonnie at the Readings and Workshops program at Poets and Writers. So thank you again to Courtney for that wonderful reading. I was transfixed. I think that's the word that I settled on, transfixed. So we will be doing a raffle, a very special raffle. It's a tradition that we have at these WEX readings where we give out 2-year subscriptions to Poets and Writers magazine. I happen to have the September-October issue with the wonderful poet Joy Harjo on the cover here to show you what a beautiful magazine it is. So like Bonnie mentioned in the beginning, this was an analog raffle at one point. People would fill out papers and we'd draw them out of a hat, but we don't have that right now. But I did find a really wonderful online random picker. And of all of the folks that, again, just took the time to register, that entered you into the raffle. So I've got numbers here and we're just gonna go and click the button, pick a random item. I wish I had some sort of, I know, some sort of drum roll. Okay, and the winner has just been spit out by the program and is Lisbetta Chisholm here. Lisbetta? Oh no, let me see if I can do a quick search. Oh no, Lisbetta was not able to join us today.
Okay, you got to choose again.
So we got to choose again. Let me take this number out. This would have been good to have actually a drum roll in the background. I should have thought of that. So I'm running it again. And now the winner of the 1-year subscription to Poets and Writers magazine is Maya Pons in the room. Oh no, Maya's not here as well. Okay, we're gonna do this again. Let's take this, number 29, out. Random item. Not a drum roll, but there's a police siren in the background. Okay, number 24, and that would be Megan Marshall. Megan? Oh no.
Oh no, what's happening?
I don't know. All right, we'll do this one more time.
Nobody wants a prize.
Nobody wants a prize today. All right, we'll do it again. This is the winner, I can sense it. Okay, so the winner is going to be Meg Konitzer. Meg is here. I see Meg. Hi, Meg.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just, okay, so Meg, you won a 1-year subscription. I will send you an email shortly after the reading to set that up for you, but congratulations. Thank you, Meg, for joining us, and congrats again. And we're gonna do one more random picker. That's what the program is called, random picker. Okay, click. And the winner for this 2nd-year subscription is Rosalind Bastias. Hi, Rosalind, congrats on winning the raffle. Similarly, we'll be in touch to set you up with that, but thanks again for joining. And let me see here. I'm just closing out my many tabs. And I think Bonnie.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Here, awesome.
Great. So I am now going to introduce our poetry judge for this year, Prageeta Sharma. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about her, and then she will introduce Jodie. So Prageeta Sharma is the author of many poetry collections, including Grief Sequence with Wave Books, List to Fill with Subpress, and through Fence Books, Under Gloom, Infinite Landscapes, and The Opening Question, which won the 2004 Fence Modern Poets Prize. She is the founder of the conference, Thinking Its Presence, Race, Creative Writing, Literary Studies, and Art. She is a recipient of the 2010 Howard Foundation Award and a finalist for the 2024 Quartets Prize. She has taught at the University of Montana and now teaches at Pomona College in California. We're so happy to have you here, Prageeta, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce and tell us why you've chosen Jodie as our poetry winner for this year.
Thanks so much, Bonnie, and thank you to Poets and Writers, to Madeleine and Ricardo here, and Bonnie, and to our two wonderful recipients and writers, Courtney and Jodie. It's a pleasure to introduce Jodie Noel Vinson, a wonderful poet and nonfiction writer, and we were both, I have so many questions for her to really think about the way in which poetry and nonfiction are just in a renaissance right now. And it's wonderful to think about the exciting thinking there and the exciting writing, which I found in this submission. It's just Jodie's work is in 36 times. It's such a beautiful sequence, and I wanted to think more about that sequence, and I'm going to just read some of my notes. I'm just captivated by the poignancy, observation, and deepening description in these stunning prose poems. They carefully allow the reader to gaze in and at, along with the writer, the quote, uninterrupted horizon, sunrise to sunset, through a meticulous record. These poems curate the habits and works of artists as they fold in the observational time and intimacy of the speaker in travel, art, and in diary. The poem vignettes show us how images, if we remain open to their qualities and features, can be vigorously studied, reviewed, and harnessed. And in them, we see vistas of sentiment, rich aesthetic works that teach us to see more internally. These vignettes build, and that they're vignettes, but they're prose poems. The hybridity is rich. They build dear tonal frequencies of language making and make this writing so hearty, true, and philosophically deft. Jodie Noel Vinson is a poet and nonfiction writer whose creative work often blends the two genres. Her prose poetry has been published in Kyoto Journal, Sand, Boulevard, and Agni, and her essays have appeared in the New York Times, Harvard Review, Plowshares, Nowhere Magazine, and Electric Literature, among other places. She holds an MFA in creative nonfiction from Emerson. Please join me in celebrating and welcoming Jodie Vinson.
Thank you so much, Prageeta. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your kind words for selecting my work. It's already opened up so many amazing opportunities and conversations. I want to thank Bonnie Marcus from Poets and Writers, who shepherded Courtney and I through dozens of meetings with publishing professionals, as you heard. Bonnie, you were such a wonderful guide, cheerleader, advocate, and fellow poet. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who set aside time to meet with us as well. It was really overwhelming coming out of this time of solitude and isolation to be met with so much warmth and encouragement. And thank you to Courtney. What a wonderful reading you just gave. I'm so excited for your book. And part of this award was getting to meet you, a fellow Providence writer. And thanks to Maureen Egen and Poets and Writers for this award in the first place. And thank you to Ricardo for your wonderful tech support. And thanks to everyone for coming. I know virtual events can be a lot, so don't worry if you need to turn your camera off or just get cozy or lay down. All you have to do is listen. To that end, I'm actually going to share my screen. I'm going to be sharing 36 views of Mount Fuji by Hokusai, along with my reading. And you don't need to look for or figure out a correlation between my words in each image. It's just for kind of a cumulative effect. This is 36 times. 1, Georgia O'Keeffe painted Cerro Pedernal over 30 times from her studio at Ghost Ranch. If she painted that mountain enough times, she thought, God just might give it to her. Two, doing something 30 times over indicates a certain amount of affection. O'Keeffe's husband, the photographer Alfred Stieglitz, photographed his wife over 500 times. Three, I must have first seen you out the plane window at 22. Perhaps this is why, whenever I fly, I always take the window seat. Now that Seattle is home, every arrival and departure means a chance to see your face. Four, when my husband and I visited his relatives in Provence, we gazed out his cousin's car windows, watching the colors of Cézanne's paintings blur into the soft, fluid features of the landscape. When we reached Mont Sainte-Victoire, which Cézanne painted more than 60 times in one decade, we only stayed for about 10 minutes. The cousins' children were bored. They said, "We've seen it before." Wasn't that the point? Five, it's hard to describe what mountains mean to a plains girl who spent the first 2 decades of her life confronting an uninterrupted horizon, sunrise to sunset. Six, O'Keeffe first came to New Mexico as an alternative to staying in New York with Stieglitz, who'd just started an affair with the wife of an heir to the Sears, Roebuck & Co. fortune. Of her new landscape, O'Keeffe would write her husband, "It makes me feel I'm growing very tall and straight inside, and very still." Mountains often fill voids other than the sky. Seven, when he read his friend Émile Zola's novel Louvre, Cézanne recognized himself in the central character, a painter called Lantier. Cézanne did not like the self he saw in Zola's pages. Breaking ties with his childhood friend, he withdrew more and more from society, a choice that seemed to draw the painter closer and closer to his mountain. The poet Rainier Maria Rilke would later observe that only a saint could be as united with his God as Cézanne was with his work. Ironically, Cézanne's seclusion also brought him nearer and nearer to the fictional Lantier, who, by the end of the novel, had hanged himself from the big ladder in front of his unfinishable masterpiece. Eight. The first image in Katsushika's Hokusai series 36 Views of Mount Fuji is the Great Wave off Kanagawa. In the print, the wave almost eclipses the mountain, which can be seen beneath the hungry curl of its crest, standing snow-capped and small in the distance. The sea rages, and being in the foreground is the clear, present danger, yet the mountain in the background cannot be underestimated. It's diminished, yes, but isn't this just a matter of perspective? And isn't perspective what is needed to remember that Mount Fuji has been standing there all along, that when the wave melts back to sea, taking whatever inland destruction it wreaked with it, the mountain will continue to stand? Looking at Fuji, untouched by the wave's fury, you get the sense that if it wanted to, it could blow its top. But at this particular moment, it has chosen not to. It is the mountain's presence that most inspires when viewing Hokusai's 36 prints. Rain or shine, snow or wind, clear skies, seen from village, sea, or city, the mountain is a timeline against which all of life is measured. Nine. At a National Parks Visitor Center, I view a miniature diorama that reveals the Pacific Northwest before European settlers arrived. Mount Rainier as it appeared to native inhabitants, explains a nearby plaque. At this point, I've lived in Seattle for a few years, so I'm accustomed to seeing you couched between skyscrapers and the Space Needle or crowded up against a Ferris wheel. That is, you've always appeared in the context of architecture, which, magnified in the foreground, serves to shrink your sheer size down to something that can be swallowed in day-to-day bites. In the diorama, all of this is stripped bare. You rise from the plains like the god those who saw you unspoiled believed you were. The god, perhaps, you are. Ten. A less known fact about Hokusai. He was one of the 19th century's leading designers of three-dimensional dioramas. "11. I like being able to see what's coming. It's a kind of security," a friend who has chosen to stay in the Midwest explains. And it's true. When you live in the midst of plains, you have the advantage of always seeing what's on the future's horizon. A cyclone, perhaps, funneling across farmland. But when you live in the daily presence of a volcanic cone, when you walk upon soil whose properties imply the presence of lava flows, it's a constant acknowledgement of what has been and what, in all likelihood, will happen again. It's the difference, perhaps, between living in anticipation and living with acceptance, between fleeing below ground and bowing one's head. 12. I'm still trying to forgive the woman in the middle seat who, as the plane banked for descent, reached across to plaster her oversized cell phone against my window. We sat silently, watching you sink pink beneath the clouds on her screen, until my offended muteness melted into her wordless awe. 13. Mount Fuji's northwest flank is blanketed by Aokigahara forest, a thick wood that has grown up over lava that once flowed molten from the mountain's core during an eruption in 864. Over hundreds of years, the cooling lava was sown with seeds dropped from the beaks of passing birds. Today, the forest has become so dense it is known locally as Jakai, or the Sea of Trees. Beneath a canopy of cypress and hemlock, warped roots furred with moss twist across the forest floor of volcanic rock so porous it absorbs sound, lending Aokigahara Jakai its reputation for silent beauty. 14. The Iowa landscape is cultivated and purposeful. Cornfields do not have to explain their usefulness or excuse their ample existence. But what use is a mountain? It exists only unto itself. A mountain stands tall and straight and still and says, I am enough. 15. Living in the shadow of a mountain after college was a luxury, even perhaps a bit of a rebellion. What was I rebelling against? Unchanging scenery, for one thing. Treadmill runs, my sister used to call jogs along the miles of gravel road that hem Iowa's cornfields like patchwork. Perhaps even against the pencil-straight rows of purposely planted corn, against the idea that bearing a kernel yielded a predictable crop. The skies pressed down against a two-dimensional landscape. I boarded a plane and rose above them. 16. His horizons are high, his blues very intense, and the red in his work has an astounding vibrancy, wrote Gauguin of Cézanne. 17. When I first moved to Seattle, I was prone to car accidents. Driving over the Aurora Bridge high above the ship canal, I would sneak glances left and right, east to the Cascades glowing at sunrise, and west to the jagged peaks of the Alembics, dark silhouettes at sunset. This was actually safer than gazing straight ahead, where, on a sunny day, you might dazzle me right off the bridge. 18. Seattle's Aurora Bridge has been the site of over 230 suicides, trailing only San Francisco's Golden Gate. Which side do the jumpers face? East to the Cascades or to the Olympics in the west? Sunrise or sunset? (19) Mount Fuji's soundless sea of trees is also known as Suicide Forest and is the country's most notorious place for taking one's life, with around 100 suicides documented a year on this side of the mountain. (20) One of Hokusai's illustrations of the Japanese epic Strange Tales of the Crescent Moon depicts the ritual suicide of Takama Isohagi, the servant of a medieval warrior. The image reveals two moments simultaneously: the moment when Isohagi plunges the sword into his stomach, and the moment after when he lies prone in death. Cresting over the raised heap of the two bodies, a wave seems a moment away from washing the scene clean. In retrospect, with Hokusai's later works in view, it's easy to read this early illustration as a precursor of what would become the Great Wave. In Takama Isohagi, the wave's foaming crest hangs just over the focal point of the print, the composite of Isohagi's body bent back over his corpse at the moment of death. Thrown together, the bodies, above which the suicide's determined chin thrusts in a peak of anguish, form the unmistakable shape of a mountain. The difference between the prints is, of course, what happens next. That is, what remains. Another way of looking at it, the suicide becomes the mountain. (21) When I moved back to Seattle with my husband, 10 years after first glimpsing your face, our kitchen window offers a view of your peak, which only appears above the pines on certain days. This elusiveness, the ability to disappear even on seemingly clear days by some trick of the atmosphere, is nothing short of seduction. As when, after a period of several days without a sighting, you stand there reflecting a late afternoon sun off a blinding white slope, or revealing a bit of bluish rock that snow cover once concealed, or emitting the soft pink aura of a sunset before melting into the crepuscular sky, until it is as if you were never there at all. Every day you are different. Every day you are the same. And even when I can't see you, I know you are there. Even when you are there, I can hardly believe it. (22) One day when you catch me by surprise as I round the corner of my house, I stop and say, I'm going to climb that mountain. But months go by without my picking up so much as a carabiner. (23) Then, on another day, I sit down at my desk and begin to write about you. (24) In 1870, Hazard Stevens made the first successful documented ascent of Mount Rainier, along with Philemon B. Van Trump. With such rich names as these, it's hard to imagine why we stuck with Rear Admiral Peters' surname, just because Vancouver's expedition spotted the peak from the Puget Sound, which they also named. Of course, the native inhabitants knew you by several names already. Tacoma, Snowy Mountain; Talol, Mother of Waters; and Tiswak, Sky Wiper, among others. Words that lay claim by describing what is there. (25) Throughout his life, Hokusai changed his name at least 30 times. This happened so frequently, and the new names were so closely related to shifts in his artistic techniques that critics have found them useful when referring to his work from specific periods. Perhaps it was this fluidity of self that contributed to Hokusai's drastic shifts in perspective, and which allowed him to know the same entity from several angles through many seasons, shades, and lenses, to understand the nuances of light and shadow across a face, how the very textures and especially colors could change in the space of hours. The self, Hokusai's 36 views seems to say, is always essentially there, yet identity is not immune to context and conditions. Rather, the environment, as well as the position of the viewer, might drastically change how one is presented and perceived by the world. "26. For much of Japan's history, suicide was viewed as an honorable act, as established through the tradition of seppuku, the ritual suicide of samurai to avoid defeat or dishonor, later manifested during World War II in the kamikaze pilots who flew their planes into the enemy as an act of ultimate self-sacrifice. This cultural tolerance for self-obliteration might also be attributed to ame, or the need to be accepted by others. In Japan, conformity, belonging to the whole, is traditionally valued above individuality. From this perspective, one's worth becomes less defined by individual accomplishments and more highly correlated with how one is perceived by others. I point this out to say, choosing where one lives can sometimes be a matter of life or death, or at least it can feel as if one is choosing between life and a kind of death. 27. It's not that I'm looking to own you exactly, especially not exclusively. I'm not planting any flags. When a person claims a landmark, it's not so much a statement of ownership, but a bid for belonging. At least, that's the way it feels. The mountain exerts a power over me, not the other way around. So that when we say, "This is my place," what we are actually saying is, "I belong here." 28. When O'Keeffe passed away in 1986, her ashes were scattered over the top of Cerro Pedernal. 29. Hokusai's tombstone is engraved with his final nom d'artiste, Gakyo Rojin Manji, meaning the old man mad about art. 30. Unlike realist painters before him, whose technique relied on linear perspective to capture the natural world on canvas, Cézanne often distorted views, like when he painted Mont Saint-Victoire tipped forward instead of rising away from the viewer, as the mountain verifiably does in nature. Émile Bernard called this seemingly contradictory rejection of classic technique in the face of the artist's desire to portray the natural world, Cézanne's suicide. The philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty, however, championed Cézanne's work through his theory of lived perspective, which insists that art does not purely imitate nature, nor does it emerge merely from the imagination of the artist. In an essay entitled Cézanne's Doubt, Merleau-Ponty instead sees Cézanne's work as a fusion of the self with nature. "The landscape thinks itself in me," he quotes the painter, "and I am its consciousness." 31. Hokusai's father, Nakajima Isai, was a mirror maker. Who can tell? Perhaps the mountain acted as a looking glass for Hokusai, one in which he saw his fluid, ever-changing soul reflected. In that case, we might read his 36 depictions of Mount Fuji as a series of self-portraits. 32. When I leave Seattle for graduate school a few years after first arriving, I don't think much about the ways I have changed since leaving Iowa. But when I move back to the city a decade later, I find that I can measure the years and their changes against the backdrop of who I was when I first encountered that mountain. 33. In a postscript to 36 Views of Mount Fuji, Hokusai wrote, "From around the age of 6, I had the habit of sketching from life. I became an artist and from 50 on began producing works that won some reputation. But nothing I did before the age of 70 was worthy of attention. At 73, I began to grasp the structure of birds and beasts insects and fish, and of the way plants grow. If I go on trying, I will surely understand them still better by the time that I am 86, so that by 90, I will have penetrated to their essential nature. At 100, I may well have positively divine understanding of them, while at 130, 40 or more, I will have reached the stage where every dot and every stroke I paint will be alive. 34. It's clear, of course, why Hokusai would, at the zenith of his career, choose Mount Fuji as a subject. The mountain stands at the center of Japanese identity, rooted in a cultural belief that goes back to the ancient tale of the bamboo cutter, in which a goddess deposits the elixir of everlasting life at the summit. The etymology of the name Fuji can be traced to the folk word fushi, which translates as not death. In other words, eternally alive. 35. Everything we see falls apart, vanishes. Nature is always the same, but nothing in her that appears to us lasts. Our art must render the thrill of her permanence along with her elements, the appearance of all her changes. It must give us a taste of her eternity. Paul Cézanne. 36. What is less clear is why Hokusai chose to depict 36 views. Not 35 or 37, he didn't even push for a nice round 50, nor could he control himself at an even 30. I like to think that 35 was just not enough. Or perhaps it was a matter of humility. The mountain enjoys a 360-degree view. To assume the human scope is 10 times less seems like a safe bet. Any more might be presumptuous. And then there's the possibility of the artist paradox. In restriction, one finds the greatest freedom. Or maybe, according to his own prophecy, Hokusai feared that if he reached 130, 140 or more impressions, his images might become alive, or at least wake up. No mortal wants to wake a mountain. Besides, surely by 36, Hokusai had already earned the right to sip at the mountain's alleged elixir. Or if O'Keefe's theory holds, perhaps by the time he'd printed that peak 36 times, Hokusai felt the mountain was his. Thank you.
Wow, let's all unmute and like give some love to this beautiful reading. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yay, wonderful, fantastic. So I thought we would take a few minutes if people would like to ask questions or make comments aloud in this live virtual mode here to any of the writer, to each of the or either of the writers. Yeah, just unmute yourself or raise your hand if there's too many people that want to talk at once and ask a question or say what you want to say. No pressure, just thought we'd give some space. Oh, we got a shy crowd.
I'm still tripping on the 360, 36. Yeah. I was mind blown. I was like, I love that. Thank you so much, Jodie.
Yeah, that was
Thanks, Ricardo. Ricardo and I had a little chat as we were figuring out the tech for those slides. I hope they showed up okay for everyone beforehand. And he admitted he was also a fan of Hokusai and probably knows more about him than I do. So don't ask questions about that, maybe.
I'm gonna ask a question. This is Hannah.
Yay.
Hey guys, I just want to say maybe share some things, from your time, like, what were some things you'll remember the most about this experience?
Oh, wow. I have just been so taken aback by the warmth and generosity of others. The idea that so many strangers, right? Like writers, editors, people that are doing different reading series, people that are like hustling, people that are on the ground, really trying to make their lives as writers work, to turn around and say, what can I do for you? How can I help you? That has just been such a gift. And for me, it's been very helpful in like a psycho-spiritual, emotional way, because I'm dealing with the kind of like pre-publication anxiety, and so the warmth and generosity of others is just breathtaking in its scope. I really, like, thank you's not enough. It's just changed everything.
Yeah, and I really echo that. Definitely. I think it was a unique time to be meeting with everyone in our personal lives and our public lives. And so to have that all kind of converge at this time was really special. It felt like we were all had a certain like commonality to connect on. And then, the conversations kind of went from there. I'm definitely still processing everything I took in and learned. But I think I was impressed with, there were people in positions who had just kind of devoted their lives to the literary arts and to the support of other writers. And that really struck me. And I found that really motivating as a writer and as also someone who wants to do the same, support other writers. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were editors who kind of just like dove into the work with us. I'm at a little different place than Courtney. I'm in the middle of a work in progress. And so, certain editors like diving in and being willing to brainstorm about this project with me, writers as well. Sometimes we'd go real deep. And it was amazing to be met with that kind of community. And like I said, I'm still processing. And then more than anything, I'm just like so eager to get back to the page as well and take this like inspiration and fuel and channel it into some work.
Mm-hmm.
Great question, Hannah. And Hannah was one of the people who generously met with us. So thank you so much.
It was, yeah.
How did it feel to read your work? Because I know there was, how did it feel to read it? I know virtual readings are different than in person, but how did it feel for each of you to present your work live here on the screen?
I was so nervous. I have terrible stage fright just in general, and I thought that maybe it might be alleviated given the fact that this is a virtual event, and it wasn't. But I was really thrilled to read this work this is the first time that I've read some of the work that wound up in the novel, although at the time I didn't know I was writing a novel. So this is the first time that I'm very aware that I am reading an excerpt from my debut novel. So it felt uncomfortable in the best possible way.
And you did beautifully, Courtney. Congratulations. And yeah, I think a lot of these conversations, and it's almost like practice, especially coming out of isolation for like real world conversations and happenings. That reading, I was nervous as well. I hid behind the artwork. I don't know if anyone kind of caught that. So that's what I was doing. That's why I shared my screen. But I saw there was a question in the chat. How did I pair the imagery with my words, which came first? Thank you, Shayla. Thanks for coming. Mm-hmm. As far as showing the 36 views, that was really just something I came up with for the virtual reading. So like I said, there wasn't exactly a direct correlation between the specific points I was reading and the 36 prints. In fact, I just there's not actually an exact order to Hokusai's 36 prints. There's the first one, the Great Wave. But after that, I just kind of randomly paired them. And it was kind of cool to see how the words just organically worked with the image. And I kind of like leaving that to the viewer to kind of find their own connections. And then I also felt like there was a certain cumulative effect of seeing these Hokusai framing this mountain in so many different ways and perspectives. I think that was the question. I originally I was inspired by the Georgia O'Keeffe, her quote about God giving her the mountain if she painted it enough times. That's where the kind of seed of the entire piece came from.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wrote in the chat, Suzanne, she loved the way the pieces worked with one another. Found myself thinking about Courtney's mouse scene with Jodie's samurai sword and all the shared resonances.
Such a violent image. Thanks, Susanna.
Thank you. Yeah.
What do you think you'll carry with you? I mean, I know it's sort of maybe, what are the like really, what do you think you'll carry with you from this reading, from your experience with the WEX, winning the WEX contest and meeting everybody? What are the things that you feel like you'll carry with you as you move forward in your work?
That's a really great question. I think, well, of course, getting to know Jodie has been such a gift, especially because we live literally 5 minutes away from one another. But also getting to spend time with you, Bonnie, you know, like if WEX is an award and a marvelous one at that, but you are a gift, and I'm so grateful for you. And I think that's the real kind of meat and potatoes of this entire experience, is the connecting moments with other people, and it really. And at a time where we're all kind of coming out on the other side of our lockdown year, and with a kind of radical vulnerability, you know, all of us talking about how we're these kind of like weirdly socialized animals now, and like being really open with one another. But I think more so than anything, it's inspired me to reach back and help other people, to be that you know, literary citizen, you know, and reach back and help other people and do what I can. That I think is going to be the biggest takeaway, is when you see like, not like the arts as a noun and as a verb, you know, you see literature as a noun and as a verb, as like a living thing that's alive, and also a way of being in the world. And I want to be able to do that for other people too.
Yeah, I think, Courtney, I think that's probably the biggest lesson, or not lesson, but feeling that I will take with me and hopefully apply in the future. I know how much it means when someone says something. I mean, you guys were so lovely in the chat, specific about my work as a writer, that it just means the world. And so to be able to give that back. And then I think also, and I think I've seen it in you, Courtney, so I think this is probably, I don't want to speak for you, true for you too, but I think confidence, right? Like coming in and being able to come out and speak about our work, and put words to it in conversation and then be met is, I mean, it's kind of an art on its own. We're used to scribbling away in isolation. So that was really great, a really great practice as well.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
I can answer Lindsay's question real quick. Lindsay, writing from the Midwest, asking if I've found a similar anchor point on the East Coast that Matt Rainier served for me in Seattle. That's such a good question, Lindsay. I mean, I'm in the ocean state and I'm really drawn to the water as well. I mean, that was true on the West Coast too. And Lindsay will know this too, like Lake Superior was that for me in the Midwest. She lives in Duluth. Sorry, I'm giving away too much personal information, but I think like that's when I first, after being landlocked in Iowa, my first experience of looking out on the water where there was a horizon line without anything on it, that was, I don't know, the ocean here is probably the closest I could get to it. It's not as much an anchor, so I'll have to think about how I interact with it differently than a mountain. I do miss that mountain. Yeah, I love Lake Superior. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments, or just want to give an opportunity if there are? All right. Any last words from the writers or the judges or anybody?
I just wanted to thank both Courtney and Jodie. Both readings were stunning, and I just love thinking about a kind of minimalism in Jodie's in its pacing, and then an extravagant kind of storytelling with the narrator, and just the way they both just describe and perceive. It's just stunning work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Just want to thank you both and congratulate you again. It was a joy to hear you, and I'm so excited for future work, and Courtney, for your novel, and looking forward to hearing more from you both.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you all the people that came here today to celebrate and support these writers, friends, family, associates. Thank you, Ricardo, for leading us through this virtual Zoom reading. Thank you to everybody. Thanks, Melissa, for being here, Melissa Cradle. And yeah, just we'll carry this with us. I know it was really wonderful to hear these readings. And yeah, everybody take good care. Find meaning and support in your life. And Courtney and Jodie, we will continue to connect. Yeah, fare thee well, everybody. Be well, take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Congratulations again. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Jodie and Courtney, should we do our usual? Should we hang out for
We're
2
gonna
minutes?
hang back.
Okay.
Ricardo, we're gonna do that.
It might take a while. Thanks,
Okay.
Bonnie.
Okay. Oh, she left. Oh no. Oh, there she is.
I'm
Bye,
still here. Okay.
Is Meg someone
you,
somebody
Robin.
knows? I think so. Yeah. All right.
You know what? This is like a good jazz moment.
Yeah,
Send us out, Ricardo.
I wish it was a little more, what's the word? Like quick.
So do people have to take themselves out, or how does that work?
Oh yeah, I'm just sort of, sometimes I notice that people will send little notes at the end of a reading, just saying,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
usually will leave the reading open, but I'm ending the stream on YouTube. So bye,
Oh, yeah.
everyone.